Is something wrong? Wait, I light the candle.
And that's how the story ends, with the lovers living happily ever after. But has Mr. Sardonicus been punished enough? Or don't you agree with me that such a miserable scoundrel should be made to suffer and suffer and suffer when you think what he did to his wife and to those girls and about those leeches? I think ordinary punishment is too good for Mr. Sardonicus.
What happens when a horror film asks the audience to decide a man's fate? In the annals of cinema, few filmmakers were as committed to turning movie-going into an event as William Castle. Known for his elaborate promotional gimmicks, Castle blurred the lines between screen and spectator, turning passive viewers into active participants in his carnival of thrills. The 1961 film Mr. Sardonicus, perhaps Castle's most conceptually ambitious film, is not just a gothic tale of greed, punishment, and grotesque transformation. It's also a striking example of horror as spectacle, one that gives the audience the illusion of moral authority while reinforcing the film's central theme: justice and retribution. Justice has been a theme in books and films throughout history, but Mr. Sardonicus takes the theme of retribution one step further with William Castle's infamous gimmick, the punishment pole, which seemingly gives the audience the power to decide the villain's fate. At the film's climax, Castle appeared on screen and invited audiences to vote on whether the disfigured villain, Mr. Sardonicus, should be shown mercy or forced to suffer. The twist? The outcome was already decided. This illusion of choice was not just a clever marketing stunt. It was a reflection of the film's central theme, that justice is not always democratic and retribution is inevitable. Mr. Sardonicus began as a short story simply titled Sardonicus, written by Ray Russell and published in Playboy magazine in 1960. The tale quickly caught the attention of director and showman William Castle, who was always on the hunt for horror stories with moral weight and a macabre twist. Seeing potential in its grotesque premise and gothic atmosphere, Castle enlisted Russell himself to adapt the story into a screenplay. For Castle, Mr. Sardonicus was more than just another horror picture. It was a vehicle for his signature blend of shocks, spectacle, and audience participation. It became one of his most conceptually daring works, a film that horrified its viewers while making them complicit in its justice. Set in a shadowy Eastern European village steeped in Gothic atmosphere, Mr. Sardonicus tells the story of a nobleman whose face is frozen in a horrific grin after desecrating his father's grave in pursuit of a winning lottery ticket. Dr. Robert Cargrave, a respected London physician known for pioneering work in nerve regeneration, is summoned by an old flame, Maud, now married to Baron Sardonicus, to treat her husband's disfiguring condition. Robert travels to Castle Sardonicus, a creepy, isolated estate filled with strange servants and ominous portraits. There he meets Krull, Sardonicus' sadistic henchman, and learns of the Baron's horrifying condition. Baron Sardonicus reveals to the doctor that he was once a poor farmer named Marek Toleslawski. His father, also a poor farmer, bought a lottery ticket but died before the drawing. After his burial, Marek and his wife realized that the ticket had won, but was buried with his father. Urged by his wife, Marek dug up his father's grave to retrieve the ticket. When he opened the coffin and looked at his father's face, something inexplicable happened. His own face became paralyzed in a ghastly rictus grin, leaving his mouth frozen open in a painful, grotesque smile. Unable to bear his appearance, his wife ends her own life, and now he wears a lifelike mask over his face. After acquiring wealth through the lottery, Marek took the name Sardonicus and built his own castle. Desperate to reverse his condition, Sardonicus began conducting cruel and unethical experiments on young women in hopes of discovering a cure, but every attempt ended in failure. When he married Maud, who had once been in love with Dr. Robert Cargrave, he learned that her former suitor had become a renowned physician specializing in nerve disorders and paralysis. Believing Cargrave might succeed where others had failed, Sardonicus summoned him to his remote estate, not through request, but through manipulation, using Maud as emotional leverage to compel the doctor's cooperation. Cargrave experiments on Sardonicus using primitive neurological techniques, but fails to find a true cure. The doctor says any other treatments could kill him, but Sardonicus threatens to deform Maud the same way he is, if Cargrave doesn't continue. Under threat, he devises a bluff, injecting Sardonicus with a placebo and convincing him it will work. Sardonicus, believing he's cured, removes his mask and discovers his face has returned to normal. But when Sardonicus later attempts to smile or speak, he finds himself unable to move his mouth at all. Cargrave confesses to Krull that the cure was fake and that the condition is now psychosomatic. Only Sardonicus' own mind can free him. At this point, William Castle himself steps into the film and asks the audience to decide, should Sardonicus be forgiven and told the cure, or should he suffer the consequences of his actions? The punishment vote wins. The film ends with Sardonicus still frozen, helpless and starving, begging Krull for help. But Krull, long abused by his master, takes revenge by eating in front of him and watching him slowly suffer and starve to death. The narrative of the film unfolds like a classic morality tale. Sardonicus is punished not by fate, but by the consequences of his own greed and inhumanity. His grotesque appearance becomes a physical manifestation of his moral corruption. The doctor he summons, Robert Cargrave, becomes both a potential savior and a stand-in for the audience's ethical dilemma. Does a man so cruel and twisted deserve mercy, or should he suffer for his crimes? Castle capitalized on this dilemma by breaking the fourth wall. At the climax, he appears on screen and presents the audience with a punishment poll, inviting them to vote on whether Mr. Sardonicus should be shown mercy or made to suffer further. In his autobiography, Step Right Up, I'm Gonna Scare the Pants Off America, William Castle claimed that the idea for two alternate endings stemmed from Columbia Pictures' dissatisfaction with the bleak conclusion of the original story and script. Castle wrote, "I would have two endings, Columbia's and mine, and let the audience decide for themselves the fate of Mr. Sardonicus." However, this claim has been widely disputed. Actress Audrey Dalton, who played Maud, stated that no alternate merciful ending was ever filmed. Further investigation by Turner Classic Movies turned up no existing footage, production notes, or cuts of the film that included anything other than the punishment ending. The prevailing view among film historians is that the notion of multiple endings was itself part of Castle's elaborate showmanship. In all likelihood, the punishment poll was a brilliant ruse, an illusion of control that mirrored the film's own message about justice, manipulation, and inevitability. In theory, the poll was a radical gesture, handing narrative control to the audience. But in practice, the outcome was always the same. Castle claimed no audience ever voted for mercy, but really only one ending was filmed. The illusion of choice was precisely that, an illusion. And yet, that illusion is the point. By giving viewers the opportunity to pass judgment, Castle turns the act of watching into an ethical performance. The audience becomes a jury, and Sardonicus is not merely a villain, but a subject of public reckoning. The fact that mercy is never shown reinforces the film's cynical view of justice. Punishment is not only inevitable, it's demanded. Castle's approach reveals a deeper anxiety beneath the film's gothic trappings. The audience may appear to control the story's resolution, but the outcome was always predetermined. This mirrors the moral determinism of the film's plot. Sardonicus' fate is sealed the moment he violates the sanctity of his father's grave. The rest is just procedural. In the same way that Castle rigs the poll, the narrative rigs Sardonicus' arc. Justice in Mr. Sardonicus is not blind, but performative. It demands the appearance of choice, while delivering inevitable retribution. In blending horror with interactive theater, Mr. Sardonicus does more than entertain. It holds a funhouse mirror to the audience's sense of power and morality. Castle's genius lies in this sleight of hand. He invites the viewer to play God, only to reveal that their hands were tied all along. The horror lies not just in the visuals, but in the realization that justice, like the punishment pole, might just be a show, and we are all too happy to play our part.